Art should evoke emotion, and it should also just make conversation happen. In this chapter, we're gonna go over how art can completely transform a space, and also how to find the right piece for your own home. We're also gonna get into how both art and interior design work together to create a mood or a vibe. And then finally, I'm gonna give you all different tips for ways that you can mix up displaying art in your own home. So essentially what I'm doing is taking 17 years of experience, all the hits, all the misses, all the trials and tribulations, and turning it into a chapter to make the whole art process way easier for you. Hands down, the very most important thing to remember when you're choosing art for your home is you have to love it. It can't just be a piece that you're like, oh, that's fine, that'll do. You have to have a strong feeling towards that piece of art, and once you bring it into your home, you're gonna find it totally evokes a mood or a vibe. So next, let's get into how art can actually help create that specific mood or vibe. Where art and interior design converge is where the magic happens. That's where like a personality comes into play, and that's how you create the mood or the vibe of the space. And the best way to describe my personal taste and style would be playful, and you can definitely see that here. This is a very happy, colorful, and energetic entryway. It fits my personality and it fits my taste, but the mood or the vibe could be completely changed if I would have done like serious oil paintings, or if everything was black and white, or if I went a little bit more loose and boho and had a bunch of unframed pieces and collected woods and collected metals. But no, I have like this really interesting mix of photography, pop art, typography, texture, wood, metal, and almost every room has like a starter piece of art or one statement piece of art. And in here, I started with this beautiful landscape. Like it has all these different colors you see throughout my house. It's very travel related, but it was the jumping off point to figure out what to surround it with. I mean, I love to travel. I love art. I love color. I love meeting different people. I love going to different places and seeing different landscapes. And you could tell all those things by walking through my entryway. But then I have a den, and the whole point was I have this really interesting piece of furniture that's built in. I need one strong piece of art that has different shapes, and that's it. Like one statement piece of art and then breathing room around it. The difference between this space and that space is this is happy and energetic. That's a serious room. It's funny that I just talked about that serious den space because just outside of it is probably the least serious room in the house. It's my dining room. And I found this artist in Charleston who recreates icons from history or from pop culture. And she does them with, not paint, not metal, not wood. She does them with felt. So the difference is the mood in there is supposed to be just like conversational and fun. And that's the difference between the moods and the vibes that art can bring based on what the overall feeling of the room is supposed to be. When it comes to sourcing art, I definitely have a few trade secrets. Social media is hands down my #1 way to find new artists that I love and to buy art directly from them. When you find an artist who you really love and there's somebody who has decided to like take control of their e-commerce, you could probably buy pieces right off of their feed. It's just way more efficient. My second favorite place is actually like a 4-part answer. Flea markets, thrift stores, vintage stores, and estate sales. These are the most amazing places to find one-of-a-kind pieces that are next to nothing. You just have to like buy it right away and transport it home. This is from an estate sale. This is considered brutalist. It's like a 1970s era wall sculpture, and these are very popular and they are not inexpensive. And it just so happened nobody in that area had the taste for this. Meanwhile, I wanted it badly, so I was like, hey, I'll offer you this for that, and walked out with it. So now you know how the pros find great art. Next, let's discuss the difference between having one major statement piece or more of a collection. My lounge is an example of how the art truly dictated the color scheme. This is a line from a song that is a metaphor, and it uses remodeling and restoring houses and construction to life. It really speaks to me because I remodel houses and design houses for a living. So it's kind of like a 1970s or late 1960s, kind of like a space age futuristic font. And that made me think of like swank cocktails. And that's kind of what inspired the built-in, which is also 1960s inspired. The other thing that's going on is like how you're playing with color or texture or pattern or medium. Everything in my lounge is pure white. The walls, the upholstery, the stained wood ceiling. In fact, the only thing in there that's permanent that has color is the neon, and it's this beautiful shade of aqua. Just to enhance that a little bit, I actually pulled those same colors from the neon and used them for the pillows on the actual built-in. And then just the architecture. Like I've got this beautiful screen wall, these angular windows, and that entire room was designed around the art. So there are ways to find one strong piece of art that really speaks to you or kind of brings your personality to a room, but there's also a whole nother direction you can go. That's with a lot of pieces of art, doing a gallery wall. The whole point of a gallery wall is to have a collection of all different pieces of art to make a statement. It's about a bunch of art coming together to be used as a grouping rather than just one standalone piece. My entryway technically is a gallery wall, but if I'm gonna get more specific, this type of gallery wall is actually called a French hang. French hang refers to something that happened in the 1800s in Paris. What would happen was cafe owners would have bare walls and they didn't want to invest in buying art. And then there would be local artists nearby that did not have the money to actually have their own gallery space or a place to show off or market their art. So what would happen is the artist would come and use every square inch of the wall to hang all the pieces that they had that they wanted to sell. So from the ceiling all the way down to the floor or just above the base mold, the artist would fit as much art as they could onto those walls, hoping people would see it all day long and buy it. So it was like a win-win for everybody across the board. Gallery walls are really meant mostly for spaces that don't have a lot of furniture that would be pressed up against walls. Similar to the entryway in my own house. So you open up my 13-foot tall doors and you walk into this massive entryway and there's just tons of space to cover the walls, but I don't need any furniture in here. The same thing goes for hallways and also stairwells. One of the biggest tricks for putting together a gallery wall in a way where it looks very organic and collected and authentic is to mix your mediums and try not to place the same type of art next to the same type of art. And what I mean by that is we have typography here. We have this really fun saying next to a color blocked abstract. Directly next to that, we have metal sculpture. Below that, I've got travel photography. I've got a map, I've got pen drawings, and as we make our way all the way over to my hallway, you'll see I also didn't have the width in here for any furniture. So it gave me another opportunity to keep displaying art with every available square inch of vertical space. One of the most popular questions I get from people who want to know how to put together a gallery wall is how many pieces do I stick with? I do not have the answer for that because everybody's house is different, but I will tell you that odd numbers always look best. Anytime you can group things in odd numbers, there's a visual balance that makes everything look perfectly fit for the wall. Another question I get a lot is how much space should I put between each piece of art? I like to keep my spacing with a consistent range from about 3 inches to 5 inches to 7 inches between each piece. It keeps everything really uniform. It allows enough breathing room around, but it doesn't look totally perfect. It looks more collected and more gathered over time. Another really big factor that comes into creating a successful gallery wall has to do with the shapes of the pieces of art. You don't really want everything to be a rectangle. You don't want everything to be a square. In fact, what I usually do is for everything that is rectangular or square, I try to introduce something that's not. So right here in the middle, we've got all these rectangles happening, but they're kind of broken up by the roundness of this metal sculpture. As far as frames go, the one thing that I try not to do is I don't really want to have the same frame seen a bunch of times on a wall if the idea is to create a very collected looking gallery wall. So for example, here I've got a floater frame and a gray washed rustic wood. Here, I've enhanced the black and white by doing a really bold bubblegum pink frame. I'm not using the same frame on every piece of art because every piece of art is supposed to have its own personality. I would say if it's a piece of art that is a huge investment and it's completely irreplaceable and invaluable, invest in professional framing. If it's something that's a little bit more like something your kid made in kindergarten or something you did on an afternoon for fun, DIY framing is okay. There are much more simplified ways and situations in which a gallery wall works with less stuff, but just taking advantage of any available vertical space you have. All right, so if my enthusiasm is not a sign, you can tell that I absolutely love talking about art and how to use it. So if this chapter speaks to you, that means you're my people because art to me is everything. And I'm hoping that these ideas make sense in your house. So whether it's a hallway or an entryway or a stairwell or a little bit of a wall above your sofa, you can make a huge statement with art and do it in your own way. So I'm hoping that this chapter was as useful to you as it was for me to talk about. I'll see you next time.